welcome to Angling For You. And you join me on another Back to Basics, and as you can see, we're in the back garden. It's pretty nippy, but it's something that I get asked quite a lot of times from people mainly that are starting up, and that's how to set a rod up properly. Now we're setting this rod up with a feeder on it. It's going to have a DuraBanjo feeder, so it's not only going to be just explaining how to set it up, it's going to be also how to put that DuraBanjo on, and basically how to make that whole rig workable to fish on commercials. And we'll get straight into it. I'm going to zoom the camera in, and we will able to go step by step about how we right guys, so obviously we're going to, majority of this video is going to be all about my hands. So we're starting right from the beginning, so we're going to make it super simple. So we start with a two-piece rod. So there's two pieces there. So you've got your main bit where you fasten your reel, which we're going to go into, and then we have another piece which is sort of the middle of the rod going right down to the tip of the rod, where we can interchange the tips for feeder fishing. But if you're fishing a waggler, a rod, then we'll do a little setup on that, but that'll be, a tips will already be in there. So just looking at this rod, it's a 10-foot rod, and you can see here we've got a little area between two little sort of catchers where we're going to fasten the reel on. Now if you look there, you can see that there's a gap there and a gap there, and this top black wheel will allow this to move forward and backwards depending on what size reel that you put on. Now most rods will have a guide for what kind of reel. This is a 3000 reel. You wouldn't really want to go more than a 4000 reel on a 10-foot rod. So when we look at the reel itself, we've got a few different parts. So this part on the top there, as you can see, that's what's going to go attached to the rod. It's got a little bit of curve in it, so it sits against the rod, and it's got the two ends which will go into those gaps. So we'll go to that in a second. Then we've got the handle. So the handle, as you can see, is quite floppy at the moment, and the reason that is there's a little screw on this side to tighten it. So when you put the rod away, or the reel away, you would undo that, and that makes it slack. So what we're wanting to do is pull the reel, so it's the handle, so it sits flush here. So as you can see, if you pull it out a little bit, it's hinged. You want to push it in, and it wants to sit flush with this little bit, and then on that side we're going to tighten that reel up, and you want it nice and tight until you don't want to force it, but until it's really tight, and that allows you to turn your reel. Now the second part, most important part of the reel, is the bail arm. So this is the piece of metal bar that goes round the edge of your reel. Now that is opened when you're casting, and that is closed when you're playing a fish or once you've cast it out. Now there's a little guider here, and that's where your line's going to sit. The line is already on the reel, which if there's a video on how to do that and how to load this. This one's a little underloaded, but this is the first reel that I've got to in the shed. But just for this, we can show you. So you've got your piece of line. The very important first step is to open this bail arm and make sure that line is under the bail arm. So this is the line now. This is on this side. So if I was to close it and I was to pick up the line, it will sit underneath that brass. It'll sit here right underneath that brass bit. So that means it's closed. We want it open, but we want the line on that same side. But before we're going to start pulling line out to thread through, we're going to look at how we fasten it. So to fasten it, there's these two guiders, as we said before. We want to slide in one side first, flatten it against the reel against the handle, and just gently screw this one down until it meets the reel. And as soon as it meets the reel, it'll start to pull in that little side of it there. And again, you want to tighten it, not ridiculously over tightened, but just until it's firm. So it's firm now. I don't want to squeeze it in on any more than that, and that reel is solid and is on there, and onto the shaft of the rod. So that line now can come freely, because we're under the bail arm, can come freely off the reel, and that's when we're going to start to thread the rod. Now the rod itself is going to be put into two parts. We're going to put that together, so I'll show you by putting the rod down first before we start to put any line on it. What we need to do is bring that other rod, and we need to just gently slide that on, and again firm until it pushes together but not too firm. And then the next part of that is what we do is we look down with his eyes, we look down the rod tips, and we should be able to see if all those little rings are in line. So the eyes, this is an eye, and you want all those to be in line for what in one straight line, and that means that the rod's going to be working in the perfect scenario. So let's zoom out and we'll show you how we can thread that through. Right guys, so we're going to thread it this way purely because I've got the house door on this side. So what I was saying before is we've got the line in front of the bail arm. We're going to put the butt of the rod down and just slide it away from us and find the end first. So what we've done now is we've looked down the rod and we've made sure that all the eyes are in the right order and they're all straight in line and that everything's in line. And then it's a simple task of going through the middle of the eye. So not the crooks that are next to the attachment. You want the circle part of the rod, and you want to thread all the way through. For this, with me being in the garden, I'm going to have to alter the direction a little bit to allow me to get to all the rod. This bit needs to be done right. You need to make sure you don't go over the top, so then it's pulling on the top of it. It needs to be just straight through the eyes and not wound in over the top or anything like that. Make sure it all runs all the way through, and make sure, very importantly, that you get all the eyes with the line. Sometimes if you miss an eye, you're putting extra pressure on the rod that's not meant to be in the right place. Good idea is to pinch the line when you get near the top, because it sometimes drops out of your hand, especially if it's cold, and then if you're not got a pinch on it, it'll go all the way down to the bottom and you'll have to start all over again, especially when you're using thin lines and it's a little bit of wind. So we get all the way to the top, through the top eye, and what we want to do now is pull the line down so we can work with it. So we bring the rod back to us, and what we're going to do now is the same bail arm that we opened, we click shut, and if you pull the line you can see it's pulled tight now against this, and that means that the bail arm is closed, and we can check by pulling onto the line. And what I'll do is I'll just step off camera and I'll show you the bend on the rod, just to show you what I mean by making sure the rod's working correctly. So you want the rod on shot, and it wants to be nice and smooth. You want to make sure that it's going through every eye and that you're all fine with that. Now we're going to go on to putting the rig together. Now that putting the rig together is important to give yourself a little bit of line to work with. So we've got quite a bit of line here, and that allows us to work freely, and the weight of the line's not going to be pulled against us. So what I'm going to do now is change that camera angle so we can get a nice close-up image of how we tie this. Right guys, so now we're down at the zoom in, we can show you a few of the little bits that we've got here. So this is a Jura banjo. So for the Jura banjo, what will happen is we take off this little sleeve. This will sit like so, but the way to put it on, because it's weighted, there's a little way, because of the quick release system, that we just need to put the stem on, and so we're just going to move that to the side and I'll explain that. So we've took that into two pieces to start off with. We've got a feeder bead here, which is comprised of a little connector part and a little bit which is just the sleeve that goes over, and then we've got the little bit of 4-inch hook link with a little band on and a little 16s hook. So first thing you need to do obviously is get some line. You've given yourself plenty of line to work with, and I am a big person on doing this. I always forget to put the sleeve on first. Now if you don't put the sleeve on first, you'll have everything on and you'll forget, and you'll have to take everything back off. So the sleeve goes on first because that's going to go over the top. So we just thread the line through that, and that's running on the line now, and we're going to just slide that completely out the picture, and then we go on to the little bit of tubing, and again we do the exact same thing for the stem. Slide the line through and it's onto the line. That now goes out of the way, that's why we have all that extra line. Then we go on to the shell or the casing of the connector. Now there's two sides, there's a fat side and there's a side with a tiny little hole, and the reason that is that the fat side will go over the top of the connector part like so. It'll slide over like that, so that needs to be facing to the bottom of your line. So what you need to do is put the line through the small side first to make that easier. So that goes through like so, and again that can slide out of the way. So the real bit for securing all this in is this connector. Now to put the connector on, it's got a hook on one side, that's what we're going to fasten the hook to, and then it has the side where there's a hole, and the hole is where we're going to put the line through to start off with. So once it's on the line like that, you want to give probably about 2 inches worth of line between it, because that line is you're gonna hold it like that. So the line's running through like so, and we're just gonna nip it together with his fingers. And I find this the easiest way to tie it. So we've got both the lines sat side by side, and we're going to put his finger and make a loop with the piece of connector, so like so, and then that connector is just going to go through that loop like so, and we grab hold of the tag ends and we gently pull. Now the knot's going to be a little bit too high sometimes, like it is there, so we grab the tag end side and just work that knot slightly down, so it goes towards the connector, as you can see, gently pulling it there. And then once it's where you want it, just give both pieces of line a little pull together, and that'll be your first knot. And you can see that knot's nice and small, it sits right behind. Now what we need to do is repeat that process to make sure that that's locked off. So again, we keep grabbing those 2 tag ends and putting his finger, making a loop, going round and under, so it creates a loop, and then we put in the connector through the loop and pull in the tag ends, and it will follow that same knot that you did last time. We're pulling it tight like so, so that creates now a double knot, and that's sat behind the connector and it's not going anywhere. So we want to get as scissors, and I give it probably about a centimetre worth of tag on it, just to allow me to tighten it up and just make sure there's nothing going on with it. And the sleeve will now slide down the line, if we can get it to slide down the line and up to there, and that will now go over the top like so, and that's what's going to hold the hook. So we'll come back to that because we're going to put the Jura Banjo on first. So what we'll do is just drop my hook link on the other side. I'll just pick that up first and trap that under my scissors because it's a bit windy, and we'll go on to fastening the Jura Banjo on. Now we've got these 2 pieces here, like we said before. We've got the stem in this hand, and then we've got the sleeve that goes over to lock it in place. Now we don't want to put those together first. If we look at the Jura Banjo, on this side is obviously where the bait's going to go. On this side there is a line, and now that line allows you to put the line of that you're fishing with through it. So as you can see, I'm going to put that straight down and straight through that line and pull. So now the stem is connected, it's stopping the line from going anywhere because it's connected on, and we've got the stem, and we're just going to pull the stem inside of the Jura. Now you'll see we've pulled it in a little bit, and we just need to push that right in till it fits there, and the butt part of it will stop it. So you can see now that the bead sits against it, we've got the stem, the feed is completely on. This is when we slide down the top sleeve and push that on. So that sleeve sits on top, and there you have it. You've got your Jura banjo attached, and you've got the bead on the bottom. So all's left to do now is to get your little fingernail and pull on a little bit of stem to allow to see the little hook part of your connector, and then we get us hook link that we've got here, and there's a loop on the end of the hook link, and that, like if you fish with a pole and you have a Stomfo connector, it's the exact same scenario. You put the loop over the top and it pulls against the little hook that's on there. We hold that and slide over the sliding cover, and there you go. It's completely on and in line. We've got that, as you can see, we've got the banjo perfectly on, the stem on, the sleeve over, and then we can interchange that hook link. And the best part of it, these Jura banjos, is if we wanted to take that off, all we need to do is just release the sleeve like so, and we just push a little bit on the stem, slide it forward, and it pulls straight off the line. So if it gets windier, or it gets the feed, they needing more feed or less feed if you're using a bigger one, then you can change that around. And same with your hook link if you need a different hook link. So you slid the line back on and you push it straight back onto the stem like so, and on goes the sleeve, and that's it. So I'll go back to main camera and we'll just discuss a little bit about the rig. Right guys, for the last part of this, what I'm just going to show you is just tightening up. So tighten all this line, take up the slack, and you'll see your feeder moves. Now grab your hook in your hand, and on most modern rods there's a little tiny loop there of metal where you can connect your hook to, and that allows you to just sit that at the side of your peg if you're fishing a pole or another rod, and allows you to just have it basically ready to go. You can even have your bait on there. If you don't have that, what I suggest is you get an elastic band or a pole elastic and tie one round, and you can just pull that out and hook it onto the elastic. That's what I used to do on some of my other rods before when I first started. Now if you want to do what I do and put these in a ready-made rod bag, so you go straight back to those sections where they meet, and you take them off, and you turn it towards yourself and lay that down. Right, this is an important bit now. You need to make sure that the line, when you're taking up the slack, because there's obviously going to be a bit of slack between the tip, just keep your rod straight and allow your rod to just bring up the slack, because what you don't want to do is you don't want the line to touch the reel and go behind the reel and make it a big old tangle. So just keep tightening until your rod comes together like so. You can let a little bit of slack off once you've got it together, so then your tip's not bent too much, so it sort of sits like that. And then this is where we unscrew the handle like so, just not fully, but enough that we can bend it, and we can just let a little bit of line out, and that allows us to then just put that in the ready-made rod bag ready to go. Now just as a lasting feature, this one's called a front drag. So this is the mechanism on the top that we twist. So if we twist it to my right, it gets lighter. If we twist it to my left, it gets stiffer. And basically what that's doing is aiming you to control how much line the fish takes depending on what species or how hard the fight is. It's not good to have it on tight. It only can do damage to your rod and you end up breaking things. It's always good to have a sort of a medium style, depending if you fish, especially fishing for carp, you'll understand when the fish, if you don't want it to be taking tons of line and you don't want to be winding while that line's been taken. But some have it on the back of, which is also a little twisty knob instead of having it on the front, and that's exactly the same premise as doing it at the front. There's also a little click underneath the reels, and that allows you to back wind, but unless you're a bit more experienced, back winding can be a little bit more dangerous with blooming all your line off and getting yourself in tangles. Something you only really should do when you've got pressure on the rod and with a fish on, not without, otherwise you can end up with massive tangles. So hopefully this Back to Basics has helped you out. I've done my best to try and show you. I've been filming it on my own, so hopefully it's worked out well on camera, and we keep firing out these Back to Basics. This video won't be for everybody. A lot of people know how to set up their own rods, but for people that are getting into it or maybe want to see how to put on a different rig, this hopefully should give you a little bit of insight into that. So as always, join us on the Facebook group at Angling For You, join us on the Instagram at angling_for_you, like and subscribe, share with your friends. Thanks for watching, guys. Tight lines.